Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron, and I have autism. Today, I'm going to be talking about autism, particularly for adults and those that have not been diagnosed. Just going to talk to you about what it is and some symptoms. And also, I'm going to talk to those who want to learn more about autism that may not even feel like they're on the spectrum, but maybe they have a friend or family member that is on the spectrum. And so I'm going to clear some common misconceptions about autism. And so we're just going to go through and talk about what it is. All right. Well, first and foremost, it is a social communication disorder. And so that means that socializing can be confusing, it can be awkward, it can be like this one giant puzzle of things that you need to figure out and things that you need to do to have relationships with people and be considered normal. And um, oftentimes, as people with autism, we can tend to do what's known as masking, which is trying to figure out this puzzle and replicate it and then pretend to be someone else to be accepted by society. And so, I wrote a book on unmasking autism that you guys can check out. I'll leave the link in the description. But essentially, if you're on the spectrum, being accepted is something that everybody wants. And having difficulty socializing and being constantly rejected and just struggling to make friends can be really hard. And if this is something you struggle with, that is, one of the symptoms of autism. You may fail to understand jokes. You may fail to um, understand sarcasm. You can take things very literally, and things with double meanings just don't really make sense. I mean, yeah, that's kind of sarcasm as a whole. It's just things with double meanings. How are you supposed to know if someone says, I love rock and roll when they say it, but, somehow they meant the opposite? I mean, it's just a guessing game, you know? But for most people, they're able to tell and they're able to know exactly what they meant and what their motives behind what they were saying are, I guess. But yeah, so those are things to note. Another thing is eye contact. I was always told as a young boy I needed to make eye contact, but the truth of the matter is that eye contact makes me uncomfortable and it overstimulates me. Feels like I'm just looking into somebody's soul, and it's this very strange feeling, very uncomfortable feeling. And the more I look people in the eyes, just the more uncomfortable it is. And so, yeah, if you have an issue with eye contact, that is another symptom of autism. As far as other social symptoms go, um, it can just be, yeah, hard to make friends, particularly because people, they like small talk a lot. And they like to talk about these things that seem pretty meaningless to those on the spectrum. Like, it's meaningless, it's uncomfortable to talk about. I could care less about the weather. I don't want to talk about the weather for 20 minutes. But essentially, small talk is how most people they learn to communicate. And so, I've never liked small talk. It just feels forced. It feels unnatural. Small talk makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't even feel like I'm talking to them. Just, yeah, overall feels weird. But small talk is definitely, if you don't like small talk and you don't understand it, that's definitely a symptom. So let's see here. Next thing, we've kind of talked about some social things, but it is so much more than just social things. Another thing I want to talk about is the concept of stimming, which is essentially repetitive movements just that we do over and over again. And the purpose of stimming is to calm down our minds and provide relief. And it's something that most people with autism, you know, it helps them to calm down from overwhelming sensory input and just overwhelming emotions and things like that. And so, stimming is not a bad thing at all. It is a coping mechanism, and it is a really good one. And so, yeah, let's see what else. Um, One that's pretty big for me is I I can't really shift between tasks that easily. So the concept of multitasking is, I don't know. I don't like it and I'm pretty bad at multitasking. The reasoning being people with the spectrum tend to focus on one thing at a time, and often this focus is intense. It is a hyper focus of sorts. And we can get really into things, really into subjects that we care about. And so these are called generally special interests. So for me, my special interest is I really like coffee. And so I'm a barista and I spend countless hours just studying coffee, trying different coffees out, trying new flavors. And then, of course, I want to open a coffee shop. And so I spend hours just thinking about exactly how I want my coffee shop and all the different little factors. And I just have this intense focus about it. And I could do it, I could focus on this for hours. And if somebody were to try to interrupt me, it is frustrating, to say the least. It makes me feel upset and irritated and like uncomfortable from having to change from what I'm doing to something that seems completely irrelevant to me. And like, even if it's something I should be focusing on, my mind just has trouble shifting into it. And so, I mean, it's the same way if I'm like really into a movie and I'm watching a movie and somebody tries to shift my attention away from a movie, I get internal like frustration in me and it's rough. But yeah, there are those. Um, Now I want to make a comment on intelligence. Now, a lot of people out there assume that because of these social observations they see with people with autism, they must not be that smart or they're unintelligent. While others might take it from another view that, oh, they must be a genius or a super smart. And they'll probably make the next Tesla car or something, you know? And so I just want to point out that people with autism can have a wide variety of IQs, just like every human. You know, IQ doesn't really depend on whether or not someone has autism. And so, yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, don't assume because they're super, uh, I don't know, because they're autistic that they're super smart, you know. It's just not gonna be a good assumption. just get to know the person, and over time you'll see if they're smart or not. But yeah. And then yeah, constantly blinking out like I just did is definitely normal. I mean, I just like take time to process things, you know? So my processing speed can be rather slow, but this is something that gets worse and worse and worse when there is more going on around me in the environment that goes on around me. And so, I want to talk about sensory input. So I am easily sensory overloaded, and that can be essentially sensory overload is just when all of the senses come into your brain, but it's too much for your brain to handle. And so it either like shuts down and you can't process anything and you can't keep up, or you might even like melt down and like want to scream because it's just too much sensory input. And so, you know, sensory input it's bad, at least for those on the spectrum. And so for me, my biggest one is sound. And so, like, when I'm around sound and it starts to overwhelm me, like, I literally feel myself crawling into myself. I get annoyed, irritated, and I want to flee. I want to go far away from the noise. And when this isn't possible, you know, I shut down. I stop communicating like altogether. If somebody tries to ask me a question, no response. Um, it's like I'm not trying to avoid these people, and I don't want to, but it's just the environment is too much to it's where it's causing me to no longer be able to communicate. And so, it could be, of course, way more than just sound. It depends on your experience. Maybe smells overwhelm you, or lighting, or, you know, sensational, like when you're touching something. Giving hugs to people might be overstimulating. Yeah. I just want to make a comment and say that I am not going to edit this video. And it's for the biggest reason is I just want you guys to see my autism in action. And so you can watch me blank out, and I want you to see that that's just part of my autism. And I just want to show you my authentic self. But yeah. Any other symptoms I can think of? Um, I mean, there's definitely more than just that. There's so many symptoms out there. Um, I'll just say that, socializing is really hard. I want to live often in my own world because it's predictable. I can feel recharged. I can feel myself. But when I go out into this world, it's just like constantly exhausting and challenging, and it just feels like too much. And so, um, I try to have some friendships, it's hard to create them and maintain them. Yeah, it's easy to like start a friendship but just not be able to maintain it or keep it going, which is definitely a thing. But yeah, I also have ADHD, which I could even make another video if you want, of what it's like having both autism and ADHD. But just for the sake of this video, I wanted to talk about autism. But yeah, um, to go back with like special interests, I mean, we tend to become experts in our special interests and to know everything about it. And, be able to just recall facts and information and essentially become like a professor in what we are into, which I mean, that is probably one of our greatest strengths. Not always, but it can be a really great strength. We can use it to, launch our career, and it gives us something to latch on to that is really good. But yeah, just wanted to create this video. Please leave in the comments on what you're thinking. If you have any ideas for some future videos, um, just any suggestions or feedback would be pretty cool. But anyways, appreciate you joining on this video. And yeah, have a good one.